Hey everybody, Rob from Karma Comment Chameleon. Today we're jumping into a pro-revenge story. New boss mobs and then fires admin, major systems go downhill, and bosses in hot water. Let's jump right in. So I worked for this multinational company for over a decade as a system administrator. My responsibility was in the area of manufacturing, mostly for central systems that work on data flow between the manufacturing systems and the ERP system in near real time. Even though the company had lots of cash for stupid projects, IT budget was always too tight for those expensive, customized data munching systems. So, shortly after starting to work at the company, I started implementing my own. I'm also an experienced software developer, one of the reasons my original boss hired me. I won't go into too much detail, but I decided to make the stuff web-based for easier deployment of updates. It worked great, and over time, more and more functions got ported into this easy-to-enhance, easy-to-update system. Partly new stuff, partly decades-old software that was in dire need of replacement. After about a decade, this system was rather central to the manufacturing process in many ways, and yes, there were hot standby servers, multiple backups each day, and so on. Due to the severe budget constraints, I'm allowed to use open source software for my database. I'm also allowed to use my own open source web system as the base for it all, and keep it open source, except for some small, selected parts that are company specific. I'm pleased about that because essentially the company is paying me to progress my open source project while getting a friendly, reliable system for me to use at work. I always had the support of my varying bosses over the years. We change middle management a lot. In comes another new boss. In the first ever talk we have, he complains that the software is written in programming language because that's so outdated. I tell him it's actively developed and used by a number of Fortune 500 companies for their back-end and/or front-end systems. He's not happy. He also asks me how I do all the paperwork for the project and how my former bosses manage the project. I tell him I do everything by mail, so everything is archived on the archive mail server as per law. And my former bosses didn't do any management because the users and department leaders are happy about how I manage the project myself. He is livid. A few weeks later, my boss accuses me of working as a separate company within our company, and it has to stop, and it doesn't matter if the whole company approves of my work and speaks highly of me. I have to do much more, completely useless paperwork, get approved for every small change or bug fix from 2 people, and is generally a dick when it comes to my work. He also loudly complains that I work alone on my projects and that I try to ruin the company by doing so. I have it on file that I asked whoever was my boss at the time for 10 years every month to have someone as backup and got denied every time. You have to understand, I have Asperger's and I'm generally not good with dealing with this stuff, but so far I've always managed. This day is the first ever I left early, crying my eyes out in nearly 25 years of work. More bullying follows, and over the next year, my boss starts taking away all of my duties one at a time. This results in me not always making my 40+ work hours per week. You can only read Reddit so much per day before you start going insane. Now, after everything is over, I realized that was his main tactic after all. Get me fired for not working as long as my coworkers. But it just didn't click with me at the time because nothing like that had ever happened to me. Boss forces me to train back up near the end of February. I only get 1 day to train him. He's very young and inexperienced, and I complained to my boss that there's over a decade of software development, knowledge about companies' rules and processes. He also doesn't know the programming language. The next day, after having to attend an expensive 1-hour training course and then having lunch, HR calls me in and tells me it's my last day of work. I don't have the usual 90-day period, but it's my last day of being employed. This is rather unusual in my country and only legal if both parties agree. I agree, though, since I get a nice severance package and unemployment benefits starting the next day. I don't mention to HR that I was planning to quit the next month anyway because of the constant bullying. I have 1 hour to clean out my desk and say goodbye to my coworkers. The last thing I do is to have one of my backup delete my accounts, as per company policy, while I watch. This includes my admin account in my web system. Then I leave. I go home, cut all company access to my privately owned public source code management temporarily. Then I work through the weekend to basically fork my own project under a new name, renaming all the classes and stuff, and release it back on my SCM under the new name, just so that company will have a hard time implementing all the bug fixes and security updates I do in the future. What I accidentally on purpose forgot to mention in the heat of the moment is that all the system documentation for the web system is also stored on the system and is linked to the user account of whoever wrote it, me for everything in this case. On delete restrict is active, so deleting a user account with active documentation is not allowed, but there is also a known safety in the software that prevents deleting admin accounts through the interface, so my coworker happily types the required command into the database shell directly. You know, delete from users where username equals OP, and it works. Normal procedure would have the person doing the work assign a different user to that stuff first, but what the heck, I was fired, and it was the responsibility of the person doing the work, not mine. This was well documented in the documentation he has just deleted, as well as in an email I sent out a couple of months earlier. A week goes past, and then the messages start flooding in. We used a well-known messaging app for real-time communication, and also started using it for private messaging as well, since my group are still good friends. Parts of the system aren't doing their job, and parts of the manufacturing process has ground to a halt in multiple production plants. The documentation is nowhere to be found, and they can't figure out what's wrong. From what I gather, after I left, they realized that I had a second account on the system marked developer account, don't change without talking to OP. Backup deleted it since I wasn't working at the company anymore. This also deleted a number of rather critical maintenance tasks running under that developer and system account, and the system went belly up. Chaos ensued. Emergency meetings were held. The company always held meetings instead of working to fix the problem whenever something went wrong. This is when they started contacting me. You need to come in and fix the problem right away. Company Central is already on the phone and they're going ape. Adds lots of details on the problem and also on what is happening in the company. Sorry bro, I don't work for the company anymore, but it's your system. Was my system. Past tense. I got fired last week. Remember, I do not work there anymore. But we are in trouble. First, since I don't work there anymore, you just violated company policy by telling me all the stuff. Could get you fired for that, but I'm not going to. You're the somewhat innocent bystander in this. Secondly, on the day I was fired, HR told me that they wanted me to get out the door right away because a disgruntled worker with my kind of system knowledge is a security nightmare. But you aren't disgruntled, are you? Playing it safe. No, but there is no way for your management to be sure. Are you willing to take full responsibility if you let me in and I hack your systems? No, boss isn't paying me that well, you see. And third, if I help you in any way, shape, or form, I might be in deep trouble. What? See, the company can't do a lawsuit against their own employees if something goes wrong by accident. Suppliers have similar statements in their contracts and are also insured. I'm neither of those, and if I do something wrong, or the company just states I did even if I didn't, I'm suddenly in deep financial trouble. I just can't take the risk. What if we hire you as an external supplier or contractor? I'd have to open a company, get insurance, go through negotiation with your purchasing department to get my company in your suppliers list. Then I'd have to write you an offer, which you then have to get signed by, names of 4 people, which would take all in all 2 to 4 months, after which I will have to wait for the money for another 3 to 4 months. Sorry, I decline. Please help, me and my boss, same person as my now former boss, are in very hot water. What can we do? Sorry, I can't help the company because it would be a risk to me and it would be against your own company policy to allow me to help. Pretty please? Tell you what, call up Company Central yourself, don't go through boss, and tell them exactly what happened. Tell them you broke the system by deleting those user accounts on your boss's order, and tell them you didn't know what would happen because you didn't have enough training and experience. You just relied on your boss's orders. Turns out, Backup actually did phone up Company Central a few days later. Boss went through hell, got fired, and got himself on the never hire again anywhere in this company blacklist for another expensive stunt he pulled, which the company realized shortly after he was kicked out. How do I know? I still have lots of friends at that company and hear stuff through the grapevine. Backup still has his job and a new, even more incompetent boss, so Backup is ready to find a new job. Yesterday, he asked me about planning his company exit, which reminded me that I wanted to write this post, and here we are. I can't understand why people think that they can mess with IT. These are the people that literally keep all of the systems in your company running and thus have your company still making money. I think unfortunately IT is just seen as an expense until something goes wrong, but as long as things are running fine, people don't see them as a valued asset of the company. I want to thank OP for posting this story to the Pro Revenge subreddit. You can visit them at the links in the description below. Please go there and give them an upvote. Once again, this is Rob from Karma Comic Chameleon saying thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share it with your friends, and we'll see you in the next one.